Well, yesterday morning I went out for a walk with the dog and came back to find there was a parcel slip saying they couldn't deliver it. So anyway, at 5 o'clock I was able to go to the local post office to pick it up, and my package from Autodoc has arrived. I ordered this stuff about almost 3 weeks ago actually, through a UK website called, I think it's buycarparts.co.uk. So I automatically assumed the parts were going to be coming from the UK and it would only take a few days. So anyway, these are the parts I've ordered through what turns out to be Autodoc.com. So I've got new slide pins or guide pins for the Kia Ceed full kit. These were actually an astonishingly low £2.50 odd for a set of guide pins. I don't know if it's like an in-house brand or something, but that was that. So I got two sets of that for the front caliper, and then I've got, which I'm going to do this morning, I've got the strut top mount bearing, which is an SKF one. I think that was £7.50. I'll put links to it in the description. So I bought SKF because, well, they're generally considered to be a decent quality bearing manufacturer. Time will tell if that is the case. That's upside down. So that's my plan this morning. Take my near side suspension strut out and replace the strut top mount bearing, and I'll probably do the drop link at the same time. It's a bit of a dull May day here. Cows are making a lot of racket in the background. So I'm going to be changing this now, and in preparation for that I'm going to get the car jacked up, take the wheel off obviously, and then I'll be under the bonnet to undo the strut top mounts, and I'll disconnect it from the knuckle behind the wheel. So that's the first step. So that's the wheel removed. Now if anybody's wondering where I jack it up, I put the jack there on that mount. There's a bolt that sticks down and I put it there. Some people will probably put it underneath the what do you call it, subframe at the front. I've never done that, but I just think, well, it's less distance to go, and I just put it in there. It seems to work fine. And then I put an axle stand underneath the wishbone, just in case. And then the other thing obviously is, in case something else or both of those things fail, I put the wheel underneath the sill. Obviously you're going to have a bit of an issue with the sill if it folds up on that, but better that than folding up on you. And I've just started to notice I'm actually starting to get a little bit of corrosion there, so I'll need to get that taken care of now that the better weather's coming. The car is 10 years old now, and say here in Scotland the salt etc is very hard on the cars. So the next thing is for me to, well, I don't need to worry about that too much. I just need to pull out this brake hose clip. I need to undo the ABS sensor, which I think is a 10mm, and then I've got these two bolts that hold the bottom of the strut. I think they're 17s. And then I need to disconnect the top strut mount, drop link, anti-roll bar. I think that is also a 17. And then the question will be is this going to come off? Because, well, here in Scotland with the salt on the roads, things tend to seize up and don't want to come off. I was looking at my tyre as well. There seems to be more wear on this left hand side, so I think when I put new tyres on I'll be getting the alignment done, steering alignment done. So that looks pretty corroded there, but presumably it'll undo. I think everything else looks pretty much as it should. So anyway, next thing, under the bonnet here, undo the 3 bolts. The bolt is a 17mm hex head, but the nut is 19mm, and that allows me to put on the impact wrench, and then I've got the spanner to hold it, and then that's the 3 strut top mount nuts. I think they're 14s. Anticipated, this nut here was not coming off on its own. I've got a pair of mole grips on there to clamp it, and it's now starting to come off. But that just shows you what it's like here in Scotland. You know, you can have anti-seize compound on something and it still is not interested. I was thinking I'm just going to have to get my grinder out to cut that off, and this has only been on for just over 2 years, so this isn't an ancient drop link. This is a relatively recent drop link with fasteners covered in copper slip. This particular part, the bottom part, has failed. There's play in it, and the nut doesn't want to come off, so there you have it. If you think things just come loose up here in Scotland when you use anti-seize compound, you might be disappointed. So here's a better look at that drop link I've taken off. So it's a 19mm nut on this particular one. I got the mole grips to grab onto this part. Now you can still see there's plenty copper grease there, and obviously this was covered up by the nut. But yeah, that had absolutely no interest of undoing on its own without assistance there. This one, for some reason, maybe because it was further up away from the road and the salt, this one came off actually without needing to do anything with mole grips or cut them off. But the usual thing here in Scotland is if you've had your drop links on for, we'll say 5 years or something, you probably have to try and cut them out with a grinder. But you can see the condition. So that's just over 2 years. That's two Scottish winters, and they look like that. They look like they've been at the bottom of the sea, to be honest with you. I'll get the new one for a comparison. So here we go. There's the new one. It appears to me, as far as I can tell, the near side and the off side may well be identical. So I do actually have another one of these somewhere. Of course, typically I put it somewhere safe and I couldn't find it, so I ordered a pair. But based on the performance of this lasting only just over 2 years, I think that's pretty pathetic. So these ones supposedly have a 5-year warranty, and they're a bit shinier to say the least. But no doubt by next winter they'll look like just like that. So I'll put this on after I've done the strut top mount, so this will all get greased up. There are some differences. You can see that's a thicker section where the rubber cover goes over. This one it's a bit thinner, but this one's definitely gone. It's got a bit of play in it. The top one is still you know, still stiff, but that one's very loose. Presumably something got in there, water ingress or something, and buggered it up. But anyway, these are not expensive. These are like, I think it's £11 odd or 12 quid for a pair. Again, I'll put a link to the supplier. So now it's a case of getting the strut out and having a look at using the spring compressors. The knuckle disconnected, the bolts have been removed. I've undone the 14mm nuts at the top here, 3 of them. And it's just a case of wiggling it out and then taking it over to put the spring compressors on. The strut is now removed. That was this one where we tried the easy out on it. Couldn't get that bloody thing out at all. But anyway, never mind. So I'm going to take the retaining nut out. I think it's a 17. What I'll do is I'll give us another quick going over with a wire brush. Same with the part underneath. So I'll get the spring compressors on. The one thing I'll say when you're using spring compressors is that, in my experience, I'm not saying this is how you do it, it's obviously up to yourself to figure it out, but in my experience you want to get the longest span where you can get the spring compressors on and then clamp it down. So you basically need to twist it around so you can find where you can kind of get it that they're opposite. But some people are absolutely terrified of doing this. My outlook is, sorry, plastic falling away there. My outlook is just do it slowly. Make sure you're not overdoing any one particular side more than the other, and you should be okay. But you have to use caution when you're doing this particular part, because the last thing you want is the compressor to slip off and be injured by a spring. So if you're not feeling confident about doing this part, go to your local garage or workshop where they've got a proper spring compressor, and they can take this off probably in like 5 minutes for you. I don't have that facility, so I'm just going to be doing it myself. So here goes. That's the springs compressed. You only have to. It's only a case of taking the tension off there. It's not a case of, you know, screwing them up tight and getting the coils together. It's just enough to take this nut off. So you can see, well, as you're doing it, you'll probably notice there's a gap starts to appear here. So the next thing is for me to take this strut top mount off. It's a 17mm nut. The rattle gun's very good for that. And then put the new bearing in. Hopefully if I leave it as it is, it'll go back in without any fiddling about. Nice wee cup of tea here. It's say quite a cool Friday morning. And I'll get this new bearing out and see if hopefully it's the same one. There's the old bearing. Obviously it's in bits. Top's come off. So there's the back of it. And there's what the new one looks like. It does look a little bit different, but it's the same width. So presumably that's just going to slip into there. And then the lower part here, I'm guessing I'm going to have to knock that out. So I'll tap that out with a screwdriver and a hammer. And then I'll give this a bit of a clean up. I'll go over it with a wire brush. And see how that goes. So, right, that's the next task. Knock out that ring, and then hopefully that fits into there okay. Difficult. So that's in there. It's obviously nicely rusted in because of the weather here, but I just turned this upside down. I got a flat bladed screwdriver and I just whacked it down with a hammer at different points until it came loose, and then that fell out. So that does look pretty similar to that part, and presumably this bearing will fit in there. Yeah, it feels quite tight at the moment, but I think a lot of that's due to the corrosion. So I'll get a wire brush into that, clean that up as best as I can, then I'll put this back together. I've given that a quick going over with the wire brush and taken off most of the loose stuff. It's pretty scabby, but I'll just cover it with grease. I've taken the rubber insert out, given it a quick clean up. It just goes back in there, but I'll put grease on everything. That can obviously just go in the bin. So anyway, I'll put that back together. I'll give this strut top mount a bit of a brush down as well. Again, it's pretty scabby. I'll just put grease on it as well. Then I'll need to maybe perhaps look for a more rust-free shock absorber at some point. Right, so I've put the bearing back in. You can see that it comes in. If you need to get the thing out, it's just a case of putting it on the lip, hitting down with a hammer, but obviously at the moment it'll just pop out. I've applied a very light smear of grease there and there, and then that presumably just slides over like that. So, I mean, that feels completely different to the old ones that were obviously buggered. So yeah, that feels nice and smooth. The next thing to do is put the spring back on, and then get the nut on, and hopefully put it back into the car without any drama. Well, that's the new bearing installed in there, and the 17mm nuts back on. Next thing is just to make sure this is located there properly, and I'll start slowly but surely undoing these compressors, and then I'm guessing it should all be okay. But this was, with the old bearing, this, you could hear a lot of creaking when I was going like lock to lock or parking the car. I'll put a little bit of grease on top of that to try and help with the corrosion, and I'll give it a quick brushing off before that, but I'm not too worried about it because it's underneath the wing, and as I say, at some point this will have to get replaced because it is pretty crispy looking, but it'll do for now. We'll just see how these SKF bearings perform. So I'll get this back in, and then the next step will be to install the drop link. That was a bit of a cock up. I was paying too much attention to the seating of the lower part. I didn't pay attention to the seating of the upper part, so I'm going to have to put the spring compressors back on, take the tension off, and then move that in. So don't forget, look at the bottom and look at the top, because that's obviously no use whatsoever. There we are. Hopefully you can see that the light's not very good for me here. The spring's up against the inner collar and it's fine, so I'll now slowly start to release that, but paying attention that that's okay, and that should go into place naturally anyway, I think. But this part, I need to make sure it's okay again. That's the two clamps removed. As you can see, it's nicely aligned now. and the bottom one, it's actually against the stop. It did that naturally. So next thing, back under the wing, and I'll put the top part into the strut mount holes, and I'll get that bolted in, and then we'll do the rest of the work. Probably an idea if you can get two people to help you put the upper part in, but what I do is I look at it and I see what the layout is, and I try and align the strut before it goes up and in, but for some reason that doesn't always seem to work out. So what I would suggest, or what worked for me, was I basically locate the threaded part here, and then I just turn it to see if this one then lines up, and then you know that one will definitely line up. But it can be a bit fiddly, this bit, but it's obviously very straightforward. It's not a big deal. You just rotate this strut until whichever one aligns. Then if that one doesn't align here, you know, bring that one round to that corner, and then it will eventually line up. You've got a 1 in 3 chance of success, so you might have to do 3 different positions, and then you'll get it. And then just tighten these up, or put them in like this, sort of hand tight, and then align it. Down here, as you can see, the way that I've put it together, it's at right angles, so I'm going to have to turn the strut to get it to line up with the knuckle bolt mounts. Well, that's the bolts. So you've got 19mm nuts, 17mm bolt heads. Those are both tightened up. I've tightened up the 12mm that holds the ABS sensor. I've wire brushed the anti-roll bar, and I've now got here, I've got the new drop link, so that's going to go on there and there, so at the top and at the bottom. Before I do that, I'm going to brush some anti-seize compound onto the thread. They're nylock nuts, so presumably they won't come off anyway, but Scottish weather will dictate that they don't. I notice with the new discs, there is a slight bit of corrosion where the aluminium of the wheel is obviously touching against the disc, but they've been on for 2 weeks now, and well, they're still looking okay, but there's not been any salt on the roads here, so they should look good for some time to come. So anyway, next thing, I'm going to put the anti-roll bar in at the top and at the bottom. I put it in at the top before because if you've got any trouble getting it in on the bottom part, you can just put a bar like this, and that'll allow you to, you know, like adjust it, push it down to get it in. So that's the next task, putting the drop link in. But first of all, I'll put a little bit of anti-seize compound on both threads. Fitted. That goes in really easily. It's a 90mm nut on these particular ones. As you can see, it doesn't quite align, but if you get a bar, you can put it between the wishbone and the drop link, the anti-roll bar, sorry, and then it'll align. Obviously, I've not got 3 hands, so I can't do this on my own, but that's the easy way to get that in. And the wheel is straight ahead, so it should be in perfect alignment doing that. So bar, push down the anti-roll bar, and you'll get that in easy. So I've got my ratchet spanner, and it's a 19mm. Let's just get that tightened up. If only they came off as easily as they went on. Now, I'm almost there. Yeah, that's that. I'll need to do that final tighten up by hand. If anyone's asking what the torque is, it's not something I bother with. That's probably not very clever, but it's fine with me. I just do them hand tight, that's it. I don't overly tighten them, just snug them up. And I'll be putting a little bit of anti-seize on top of it, just the same as that one. Obviously the lower one gets a lot more road debris and water and salt than the top, but anyway, that's that. So the top one's snugged up, the bottom one's snugged up, these bolts are snugged up, that retainer, the ABS is snugged up. The only thing I need to do now is tighten these nuts up, again snugging them up. So I'll get that done. That should be it. I've already generally tightened them, but I'm just giving them a final check, so that's fine with me. That cover on. So next thing obviously is to put the wheel on and rattle the nuts up with the gun and drop it down and clean the tools away. Might be time for another cup of tea. Them back together and all the tools tidied up. So if you've got any questions, just ask. Hopefully it's been of some use to some people. But as I say, I'll put a list of the sources and the prices in the description. But as I say, if this has been any use to you, feel free to subscribe and all the rest of it. And I hope you all have a good weekend.